The San Francisco 49ers start the season 1-0. Is there anything they need to clean up to make sure they go 2-0 to begin the 2024 season? Update on Christian McCaffrey's injury and why we got to leave the star of the week, Jordan Mason, alone. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making this your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And appreciate all the new listeners as well to the program. Welcome to a Winky Wednesday. More on what Winky Wednesdays are and what we're doing here on Locked On 49ers in a moment. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. And now let's bring on today's guest.
Nicholas Winkler, come on down.
Can't believe it.
Wink, what's happening, my man? For those of you who don't know, Nicholas Winkler, Winky Wednesday guest. He joins us as the voice of the fan every week here on Locked On 49ers, my former radio colleague, my former podcast co-host before I started doing Locked On 49ers. And as the voice of the fan, Nick, what'd you think about the 1-0 start from the San Francisco 49ers?
I mean, you got to love the win, right? I mean, it kind of was a little shaky at first. You know, you wait 7 months for football, and then the 49ers come out on offense. You're like, here we go. All right. Oh, 3 and out. Cool. But then after that, 8 straight scoring drives. So, you know, you'll take a win, offense good, defense good, special teams great. Like, yeah, it was a solid outing all the way around.
Turning point for me. And what'd you feel like watching the game? So Niners started out a little sluggish, felt like what I've been calling the last few seasons, week one's kind of extended preseason, it feels like, for a lot of teams. And we saw that around the league. Weird offensive line play. Croc talked about it after the Sunday games. And, you know, bad O-line play leads to bad quarterback play. Things looked a little funky in this game. And Niners, you know, get a turnover, go basically 3 and out, kick a field goal. That's their first points of the game. Then all of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers gets a little hot, rolls down the field, starts hitting Garrett Wilson, and they go up 7-3. And it was like, okay, well, they found their rhythm. 49ers haven't yet. That, you know, end of the first quarter, basically, was like, okay, this could go a bad way. This could go a bad direction. And the response right there was 3 and out by the 49ers defense, and then boom, it all just went. It just started rolling for the 49ers. They scored. I don't know how many. What do you guys remember what it was? How many drives in a row that they ended up scoring in that game? 8 drives in a row they ended up scoring in that game and just laid it on the New York Jets in prime time. And you see Aaron Rodgers, and he's got no answers. And so that was a phenomenal answer for the 49ers who showed up. And you know, a little goofy in the first quarter, a weird drive by Brock Purdy a little later in the game that Croc and I talked about was like, just sail it for no reason over Juszczyk's head. Then you bounce another one. Then you throw it into the backup tight end in double coverage. But aside from that, Purdy was awesome. He was the highest graded Pro Football Focus quarterback of the weekend. And the 49ers rolled to a victory, a resounding victory over Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. And so really a lot of people showed up in that one, including the young running back in place of Christian McCaffrey.
Hey, Croc, real quick. I missed yesterday's show, so maybe you guys already talked about it, but I want to get your take on Garrett Wilson's outfit because it was so baggy. When he first walked out, I'm like, is this dude playing JV high school? Like, what is this jersey all about?
And he got us with the number change, which I outlawed in the NFL. I'm like, who the heck is number 5, man? We're having a number 17. That guy looked fast. He looked quick. His jersey fit. Instead, he rolls out there with number 5, and it looks like his grandma bought him a jersey 2 sizes too big so he could grow into it.
I said that looked like he got his jersey from the team store, but I noticed a trend. It wasn't just him. Yeah. It was him. It was Sauce Gardner at corner. It was DJ Reed at corner. So I don't know if there's like this trend of wearing. I don't know what the hell they're doing, but
it looked like 80s unis. It looked like when like Jerry Rice back in the day had a jersey once that was like,
and it wasn't even like the short like cut,
No.
like let's say Jimmy
long.
Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo wore the loose sleeve, but it was kind of a shorter cut. Okay, you could kind of get away with it. I see Tyreek Hill do that, where it's like, I wouldn't do it, but okay, it's not the worst thing in the world. How Garrett Wilson, and maybe even more specifically Garrett Wilson, even more than the other guys, again, their jerseys were loose too. But Garrett Wilson, it looked like it was just it looked like Joe Namath out there, but like playing corner.
It was bad.
Yeah, that was gross.
It's like, it looks like how I feel when I have to get dressed up and I got to wear like a shirt that I have to tuck in, because I never tuck in my shirt. I never wear dress shirts, but if I have to go somewhere where it's like an event and I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I've got a proper belt and I got to tuck in my shirt. And I feel like, well, it doesn't tuck in right. I feel like it's all loose and weird. That's what I felt like his jersey would have felt like for him. It's just too big. I don't even mind the long sleeves. I kind of like the old Jerry Rice long sleeves, showing all the stripes. I don't mind that at all, but just the whole thing didn't fit right. Crocker way Wishnowski. I didn't really notice Wishnowski on Monday, but how he wore it at least before.
He used to wear it, yeah. But he's a puncher. He can do whatever he wants.
Disgusting, but all right. Yeah, I can give it a pass. I only see you once every blue moon, and I'm not even really paying attention to you. But man, when you see corners and they zoom in on those guys all on the TV, you just see these sleeves that look like the T-shirt I have on right now. It's a little gross. It's a little gross. Again, I'm all for newer trends, newer things. Ayuk did this thing last year. I didn't quite care for it, but all right, whatever. Where he wears like he has his jersey tight, but then under it he has like this loose shirt that it kind of like rides up a little bit, but it's loose. It kind of looked like that underneath his pads. I don't know if you guys can see, but it kind of looked like that. It was like a loose sleeve, and he had the tight jersey. I wasn't a fan of it, but like, all right, I know things change a little bit, especially since I played. But what Garrett Wilson had on, that was abysmal.
I think it led to their loss, guys. You look good, play good.
He didn't feel like he looked good. That's the thing. Like you're watching him and he kept like messing with something here and you looked at his face. He didn't look happy. It's like, of course you don't look happy. Look at your sleeves.
I think they just, it was a away game. They don't have everything. They just shipped the wrong jersey size or something. It was a jersey that was supposed to give away.
He didn't have to go to the team store and buy a jersey.
He did. He might have literally got it from the team store. And maybe they're just leaning into the 80s looking jerseys and the retro jersey look. Who knows? But they didn't look good the way they played for sure. And I don't know if it was because of the way they were wearing their jerseys. But the 49ers took a 1-0 lead into week 2 of the 2024 season. We got to do some updates here, more thoughts on the game, what it looked like out there on Monday Night Football. We got updates from Kyle Shanahan on especially Christian McCaffrey's injury and this weird story about Jordan Mason that I think we've got to address as well. And I got some thoughts on the offensive and defensive line that showed up big for the 49ers in week 1. A lot more to come on today's edition of Locked On 49ers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, and there's a reason FanDuel is #1 sportsbook in America, because they got something special for you like they do this week. And now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet just $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And of course, on FanDuel, you can bet on all the 49ers action. I hope a lot of people won their 49ers bets this weekend. And there's more every single week. All the NFL action, the college football action, Major League Baseball action every single day for the rest of the season there. Tons of props and different ways to play. And you can still bet on those 49ers if you're reinvigorated now to win the Super Bowl. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com. All right, so we have been updated on Christian McCaffrey, and it is Achilles tendonitis. And it's something that Kyle Shanahan said kind of flares up sometimes. And apparently this was flare up week for Christian McCaffrey, and he was not able to go. Shanahan said that if it had been a playoff game, though, he thinks Christian McCaffrey could have played and would have played for the 49ers. So I don't know what to think about that. It was bad enough that he couldn't play the opener in a regular season game. So maybe it's just precautionary and it'll be okay. But then you think about it and you get worried that maybe this is something that might flare up all season long. And is it possible that if it was a playoff game, it would have flared up even worse and he wouldn't be able to play then if he plays on it, say, the week before? So I don't know. What's your worry level on the Christian McCaffrey stuff right now, Wink?
I mean, I'm obviously worried. You're talking about the reigning offensive player of the year. I mean, he's a stud. He changes the whole offense. You heard George Kittle talk about it after the game. There's some things that we had to take out because Jordan Mason doesn't run those routes, and talking about the passing game when it comes to McCaffrey. I mean, obviously, it's great to see what Jordan Mason did. When we went to camp, I came on this show, and the first thing I said was, oh, my God, Jordan Mason looks amazing. He's explosive. He runs angry. He looks so good, and he showed it last night. And he had some great blocking. That offensive line did a wonderful job for him last night. That being said, I don't know if the 49ers, are going to be the best team in the NFC without a Christian McCaffrey because he is so dynamic and he is so fantastic. So obviously this is worrisome, but you got Minnesota coming up. You can probably get away with another Jordan Mason game, but at some point you want to see McCaffrey back and you want to see him healthy in that 49er uniform.
Croc, one of the things that I think jumped out to me in camp and in this game is he only had one catch. He was open a couple other times. Purdy probably could have found him, but Jordan Mason can catch the ball a little bit too. Now, clearly, as George Kittle mentioned, there's stuff that's in the playbook that maybe Mason's not going to run that you run for Christian McCaffrey, and maybe Christian McCaffrey's the only guy in the league that you run some of the plays for. But he can catch the ball a little bit too. Where are you at on the worry level for Christian McCaffrey and where he's at with his Achilles tendonitis?
Well, let's start with the team. I'm not as worried with the team because, again, you can figure out a way to still manufacture in the offense, and especially the running game. And we saw that on firsthand. Listen, the Jets defense is not bad. I've been listening and watching shows and people say, well, I thought the Jets defense was supposed to be good. No, they are good. They have a lot of good players. And I'm watching, so everybody knows Quinnen Williams, but you guys know his brother plays linebacker?
Yeah, Quincy.
Mm-hmm. And he's an all-pro. He plays linebacker for the Jets. He was out there in space like, dang, what the heck is going on? Like the 49ers just did really good things to combat whatever it was the Jets were trying to do. It was almost like Kyle Shanahan was in Robert Saleh's head. Maybe that's something that goes on. Kyle kind of dominates his, the guys that were under him in previous years. But so I'm not worried from that standpoint. It does limit some of the things you're able to do offensively. I noted it yesterday. I think it's easier when you have Christian McCaffrey out there because it's like, well, he doesn't have to come out the field. He does this, he does this, he does this. I can do this. Now you have to maybe be a little bit more creative with certain things you do in the passing game, but you still have terrific pass catchers. You still have, 3 all-pro weapons out there, right? You still got Debo. You still got Ayuk. You still have George Kittle. All those guys have been in the all-pro at one time or another. So my worry meter, especially after watching the way that Jordan Mason was running, said, look, you're going to be fine. And then once you get CMC back, then, okay, you're going to be even better. I think the big question is, when do you get CMC back? And I've talked about it on this show. Once they started saying Achilles, I'm like, Peacock, I've been dealing with this Achilles tendonitis. I went to the doctor. They're like, hey, you have Achilles tendonitis. And I'm like, dang, okay, so that's what's been going on. How do I get better? How do I heal? He's like, well, you have to stay off of it. You have to stay off of it. Just do some, rehabbing, ice it, do those things. And then over time, it'll improve and it'll get better. Now, he never gave me a time limit. He didn't say, well, after 2 weeks, you should be feeling good again. It was just like, I'm not exactly sure when. Now, also, I must preface this with, I am not on an NFL team or roster, so I don't have people working around the clock to make sure that I'm getting all the treatment I need, all the rehab I need. There's nobody working with me. But I will say some of the things that I've been going through since this has been an issue. One, every day that I wake up, literally every day, it takes about 10 minutes for me to moving around to stop limping. So as soon as I wake up in the morning, I'm limping around. And then 10 minutes later, okay, I'm good. I can still walk. I can run. I've been going on runs and jogs. I went on a 10-mile jog last week. Went on a mile jog today. I've been running a lot. I can go on jogs, but I do feel it. Like I can feel just a sharp pain a little bit, and I just kind of push through it. Whatever. The doctor also told me, hey, if you pushing through this, that's fine. But at some point, you're probably going to end up in a boot. So the more I prolong the rehab part of it for me, the more I increase the chances of potentially being in the boot or maybe even rupturing my Achilles. So those things right there are not ideal and things you don't want to hear for Christian McCaffrey. Again, he's in much better shape than me. He has much better people taking care of him. But when I'm at football practice and I'm doing drills with the kids, it's very apparent there's something wrong with Coach Croc. Like he's not running right. And when I'm trying to do the change of direction drills, it just does. And I'm like, oh man, it's like I'm fighting through it the whole time. So I don't know exactly what he's going through, but I'd assume that if it's something that he had to pull himself out of practice with, he probably feeling something similar to what I'm feeling, which is essentially I'm not 100% myself. I'm not even 100% my older self, if that makes sense.
And he's not going to pull himself out unless it's serious.
No.
So that's what worries me if it's on his mind and he's not being held out from things because of the coaching staff, because of the medical staff. He's holding himself out. That tells you how serious it might be. And he knows he doesn't feel right. That's what worries me probably the most about Christian McCaffrey. And Croc, look, Christian McCaffrey's a lot younger than you, but NFL running backs age differently. And once you start having those types of injuries, it starts to catch up. And I know how it's been on my body, just playing slow pitch softball sometimes, like, God, that hurts and that hurts. And now this thing over here is hurting and it starts to compound. And you don't get less injured as an NFL running back. You don't get less injured as you approach 40 years old and you're still trying to be active and go out and play sports and things like that. So that's just the reality of the situation. And that leads me to the next topic because Jordan Mason kind of got himself into a hot water a little bit. I hope he wasn't getting yelled at because it wasn't his fault at all, because he was asked when he knew he was going to start. He said Friday after the game. I don't know if the coach or PR staff or somebody yelled at him or something, but he was upset when he was at the podium talking to 49ers media. And I hate seeing him like that because he should have been celebrating, because he had an awesome Monday Night Football for the world to see football game and should have been celebrating it. And I hate that he felt weird about something he said when he's being totally honest. And that's Kyle Shanahan's fault. And it's Kyle Shanahan's fault that I drafted Christian McCaffrey when he had a sneaking Achilles injury and not a calf injury. So I'm mad at Kyle Shanahan for that too.
Hey, when he was standing up there, I'm like, dang, what's wrong with him? I didn't know that he had said something prior. I heard him say,
you could
I don't
see
want
it.
to get in trouble. But not just see it. I mean, everything about his mannerisms, it looked like if you didn't know that he was upset, if you just thought this is always how Jordan Mason is, which I don't think I've ever heard him talk, so I don't know. But if this is always how he is, I'm like, is this guy on drugs or something? Like that? That's what it looked like. He was like, I don't want to talk about it. You see this? Oh no. Yeah. And he wasn't like making eye contact with anyone, and his head was down, and he was just like almost like he was out of it. I'm like, is this guy concussed? Like, what's going on? But come to find out, I heard the backstory. He had said on live television, "Oh, I found out Friday," and they're like, "Oh, really?
Because you what now?"
Yeah, man, every reporter wants to ask him the same question. Like, chill out, dude. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh man, you feel bad for him too, because like you said, he has the game of his life, right? They're interviewing him, walking out, back to the locker room, and Trent Williams next to him talking about a dog. He's the dog. He's barking at him, like, he feels so good. He's just like, yeah. Oh, I was too honest. No one told me I was supposed to not talk about that or lie about that. Like, it was almost like he was a kid who got in trouble. Like, like you said, like avoiding eye contact, exactly, like in the corner, like, I didn't do it.
They asked him how excited are you? He's like, my family excited. I'm like, bro, what's going on? And then imagine watching that the whole time, but not knowing why he's upset. So I didn't know. I'm just thinking this is, Marshawn Lynch, right? Yeah. Marshawn Lynch was always a certain way to the media. And it's funny because I called him baby Marshawn Lynch when I was texting a buddy prior to the game. But Marshawn Lynch was always a certain way to the media. He didn't really want to talk to them. and is famously known for saying, "I'm just here so I don't get fined." Like that was how it looked. I'm just like, what's going on with this guy? Like, why is he up there like that? Like, why is he beat? Like, it was a little awkward. It was a little weird. And then again, come to find out, like, oh, okay.
So Jordan Mason, hold your head up high.
That's him pouting.
It's not your fault, Jordan Mason. Hold your head up high. Phenomenal game. We might need another one from you in week 2 here as the 49ers. You were a big reason helping the 49ers to 1-0, and it was a phenomenal game from Jordan Mason. So I hope only the appropriate people are now getting yelled at and are in trouble for that. And who knows? Maybe Kyle Shanahan will be in trouble because he listed Christian McCaffrey as questionable, and maybe it was Christian McCaffrey or Kyle Shanahan said it was not Friday. Maybe he's like maybe Bobby Turner or somebody told him something just to try to get him ready, because we knew that Christian McCaffrey was going to be questionable. But so anyway, and look, I don't care about the gambling angle or whatever. Look, and I really don't, even though I drafted Christian McCaffrey, I don't care about the fantasy angle either. That doesn't really matter. And guess what? Niners didn't need Christian McCaffrey. My fantasy team didn't need Christian McCaffrey. We're both 1-0, so we're okay. Even though I don't know what the heck I'm going to do at running back if Christian McCaffrey's not playing for a while, because that was where I was weakest depth-wise. Next, guys, let's talk O-line, D-line, and nitpick a little bit. It was a victory, but it wasn't perfect. Where the 49ers have to get better in week 2. Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is sponsored by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car into the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So whenever a running back goes off, as Jordan Mason did. By the way, Jordan Mason, his career yards per carry better than Christian McCaffrey's. And his career yards per carry are better than Christian McCaffrey just as a 49er as well. So keep that in mind. Jordan Mason can run the rock. None of us were surprised. None of the 49ers that were asked about are surprised either. We're like, Trent Williams was like, I think he put it best. He's like, yep, that's what he's looked like every other time he's ran the ball too. I don't know why everybody's surprised about it.
Well, real quick, everybody's only seen a very small sample size. I saw someone last night in the chat say, "Oh, Elijah Mitchell, he's washed." And I'm like, well, if you only get 1 or 2 carries, of course you end up looking a little washed, right? Mm-hmm. But you get a full game sample size of anybody running in this offense. I don't want to say anybody, but most guys running in this offense, you get a full game sample size. They end up typically doing very, very well. So I think even from that standpoint, like the expectations that I had knowing that he was going to start, he'll have 80+ rushing yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I got to be honest. I expected him to do well. I didn't expect 147 yards, though.
Yeah, no. I think anybody would be lying if they said they expected that.
Yeah,
exactly. No, but he looked like he's always looked. He's looked awesome. Yep. And it was exciting. And I was excited for him to see him get his shot because I thought he would do really well. And a lot of people, like you mentioned, Croc, compared him to Marshawn Lynch. I don't know if it's the 24 on his jersey. It's the power that he runs with. But he's got that bruising style. He's got vision. But whenever there's a great running performance, guys, there's usually a great offensive line performance too. So I got to give kudos. And I rewatched the game a little bit on Tuesday morning. And the offensive line was really good. And here's the thing. So you mentioned how the Jets defense is good, Croc, and it's supposed to be good. But then I kind of thought about it. I'm watching the game where I'm like, well, they do have some 49ers cast-offs. You know what I mean? And if the 49ers were starting Javon Kinlaw and Solomon Thomas, I would be like, I don't know about that 49ers defensive line. And we saw those guys get beat by the 49ers offensive line in this game. Even when Quinnen Williams was up against rookie Dominic Puni, and rookie Dominic Puni was awesome. You kind of get an initial push. And Puni, like a veteran, reset, get your butt under you, get your re-anchor, and then he thwarted the attempt. It was awesome. The Niners hit a home run with Dominic Puni. This guy's been phenomenal since the day we saw him in camp, through the preseason, and now his first real test against an all-pro player in Quinnen Williams. And Puni passed the test. I mean, he completely blew Solomon Thomas away on one of those Jordan Mason runs, and there was a huge hole there. So, look,
it looked like. Did you guys watch what happened with Tyreek Hill? They had them all on the ground, and they're like, "Stop resisting!" Like that's what it looked like. Puni did to excuse me, to Solomon Thomas. Like Solomon Thomas was trying to get out, and he was, "Stop resisting!" He just get out of here, man.
Seriously, yeah. And it was phenomenal to see. So the 49ers offensive line did a number on the Jets defensive line. I think the Jets defensive line, obviously without Hassan Reddick, was lighter on pass rushers and playmakers. But, run and pass, the 49ers offensive line clearly won that game against the Jets defensive line. And, Wink, we had talked about, okay, what about the Niners' new look defensive line? They got in a lot of new players. We're a little bit worried about some of the depth, especially on the edge. And it wasn't like the 49ers were pressuring Aaron Rodgers all day. I think Leonard Floyd got home a couple times, did have a sack. He pressured him into an early throw, I think, on one of the turnovers as well. Bosa's his normal nasty boast of self, but it's not that he racked up a bunch of sacks or anything like that. But I mean, they were crushing it in the run game, and that's something that they were kind of off and on with last year. We talked about run fits and tackling and some things that weren't great for the 49ers. Clearly in the offseason, that was something they wanted to address. And whether it was Malik Collins or Bosa or Hargrave, like they were all doing a great job against that Jets offensive line in the run game. And the 49ers won that game. There was a lot of standout performances, but the statistics don't really show offensive and defensive line stats the way the 49ers won it. The 49ers clearly won up front on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and when you talk about their defensive line looking so great, they did. And a lot of that honestly had to do with the guy standing right behind them wearing 54. I mean, how good is Fred Warner? It's just like he's constantly knows exactly what the defense is going to do, puts himself in a position to win, punches out footballs. Like he is just a stud. And the secondary impressed me as well. Like what great coverage. There were so many times Rodgers was back there, and the line wasn't putting a lot of pressure on him, but he had nowhere to go with the football. And that's the secondary just playing great football back there. And that was a lot of fun to see. Lenoir look great. I mean, Ward, you barely heard his name all night except when he's dropping interceptions because he had his guy on lock. Like it was just a great performance from everybody on this 49er football team.
Yeah, I thought the defense, played very well as a collective group at all levels. And watching the 49ers and how guys fly around, watching Fred Warner fly around. And, we watched him punch out the ball on the second drive for the New York Jets. But I watched him tackle after that. And every time he's flying in and he's punching at that ball. And one time I could see him go up and he put up his fingers like, hey, that was almost out. That was almost number 2, forced fumble number 2. He sets the tone for everyone. And you start watching Devondre Campbell and how he's playing. I'm like, is that Fred Warner or is it Devondre Campbell? All I see is dreads. I can't tell who's who. All these guys are flying around and they take on the mindset of their leader.
A few times I thought Devondre Campbell was Fred Warner because I'm not used to watching Devondre Campbell out there with the 49ers. So I mentioned the drive where Aaron Rodgers hit Garrett Wilson a bunch of times, and I keep talking about that drive because I thought it was a turning point because that was where the 49ers answered the call in the next drive and stopped it. Part of why it might have got stopped is because Devondre Campbell thumped Garrett Wilson twice on that drive. And one of the times Garrett Wilson went to the sideline. Like, I wonder if he's on the Jets injury report. I haven't looked. And Devondre Campbell cracked him a couple of times. One was the catch over the middle of the field. He hit him hard. And then another time he caught the ball and he went WWE like off the top rope on him when he was on the ground and like just squashed him. And then Garrett Wilson went to the sideline and Garrett Wilson caught like one ball the rest of the game. So Devondre Campbell,
I think he caught 2 very late in the fourth quarter. And the only reason why I even noticed it, I think it was on their last drive, is because Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, had talked about how he took the lower number on whatever stats Wilson had. And he's like, oh, I know why he's in. He's in just to kind of blow up the parlay or whatever he had going on. And he had a couple catches, and I think that boosted him to the over number on his yards for the game. But yeah, I mean, they were flying around, they were hitting that guy, and it was almost like they kind of took him out of the game mentally for the second half.
Well, the Niners play such physical football. You saw it with Sauce Gardner too, right? He tackled Debo. He ran into the brick wall that is Debo. Then he was on the sidelines for quite a long time too, as well after that. So it's a 49er football team that'll lay the smack on you, offense and defense, man. It's great to watch.
Croc, what do the Niners have to do better? And I know you want to talk a little bit about the not going for the kill with Kyle Shanahan and settling for keeping the game at a 2-score game and not going for it on 4th down.
First, I want to start by saying I'm not complaining about anything. I don't want people to say Croc is complaining. No, it was an awesome win. It was a great win. But obviously, we look for areas where, if the game was a little different, would you call it different, or is this just you? And I think one thing we've learned from Kyle Shanahan, I'm pretty sure a lot of our listeners out there play blackjack. And Kyle is the guy who plays every hand by the book, 100% by the book. So he can always justify why he did something, right? He's also the guy on 16. He has 16. Maybe the dealer is showing an 8, but he's never going to hit. He's like, you know what? I can't risk it. I'm just going to see if they end up busting. And it's like, well, they have 18. You have 16. You lose, right? Like, it's like a guy that doesn't quite want to take that risk. When I watched what he did yesterday, it's fine. Hey, your defense is playing very well. You're up 13 points is late in the game. You don't have to go for the kill. You can kick the field goal, go up 16. Hey, it's a 2-score game. What's the odds of them not only scoring twice, but converting on 2 2-point conversions? Not likely. But could you had even just eliminated all of that? And right. I think for Kyle, again, you can justify it. But when I always go back to Andy Reid, because that's the guy he's compared to. Andy Reid early in his career won a lot of games, 4 straight conference championship games, went to a Super Bowl, lost those games, right? When you look at when he started turning the table, I think a lot of people think, well, it's because Patrick Mahomes. But I watched him in the playoff game where he had Mahomes got knocked out the game. I think we all thought he was concussed or something. It looked all weird. So he has no Mahomes. They're up like 4 points. They're playing against the Cleveland Browns. This is a playoff game. They're on their own like 48-yard line. It's 4th and 2. He has Chad Henne at quarterback, and he could have punted the ball, and nobody would have said anything about it. Oh, you punted the ball away, make them drive 80 yards or whatever, or 90 yards, whatever it is. But instead he said, no, I'm going for the kill. I'm going to end this game right now, even if it risks putting the Browns at midfield. And I'm saying that's crazy, but he did it. And maybe crazy is why he's starting to hoist more Lombardis. Everybody thinks it's just because he has Patrick Mahomes, but I see him time and time again be the aggressor in every situation, even when he has Chad Henne at quarterback. So I looked at this situation with Kyle, and I'm not surprised or anything. I would have been more surprised if he went for it. And I think originally they lined up to potentially go for it. Then it's up. Let's kick this field goal. You go up 16. Your defense is playing awesome. I get it. But I always think about, does he have that killer instinct? Is that the one thing that is potentially holding him back from getting over the hump? I get asked that question all the time. How do 49ers get over the hump? How do they get over the hump? And I'm like, well, they're a damn good team. Everybody says they're one of the best teams in the league. They get to the conference championship game. They get to the Super Bowl. Maybe it's just Kyle having a little bit more of that killer instinct in some of his decision making.
You got to be careful, though. You don't want to Dan Campbell it, right? And go a little too far to the other side.
and you don't, right? But again, you don't want to do that. But I do like how Dan Campbell was like, yeah, we're going to end this game. He just didn't end it. And then he had the most flukish stuff after that happened, which potentially can happen. I mean, like, a ball bounce off your DB's face mask and Ayuk makes a crazy catch. You fumble the first play from offense on your next drive. It's wild stuff that happened. I'm like, man, like the football gods were not with you. But I never faulted him for going for it, especially when it's like, dang, my guy just dropped the ball. But maybe if he kicked the field goal, the game is over. I'm glad he didn't.
Just because you don't get it if you go for it doesn't mean you automatically lose either. You still have a chance to stop the other team. And so you got to believe in your team. And that's a big part of it. And by the way, I don't think Kyle Shanahan was trying to go for it on 4th and 1. He was trying to get him to jump off sides anyway. I don't think he was ever going to go for it on that one, even though the Jets called timeout. Wink, what do they need to clean up? And don't say more punts.
Yeah, I mean, just one punt for 58 yards, a beauty that hung in the air long enough to only a 4-yard return. You got to sneak a wink wish watch in there. Now,
right.
I mean, you got to clean up a couple of the, the timing patterns, between him and his receivers. He's got to catch the ball he's supposed to catch in the end zone. There's not a whole lot from this game that the 49ers need to clean up. I think they look great and just come out and play a similar style of ball against Minnesota this weekend.
There we go, Wink. Thanks for joining us always on another Winky Wednesday. Appreciate all the listeners out there and all the everydayers. Make sure you are subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen. For your second listen, check out everything else we have to offer here on the Locked On Podcast Network. 200 podcasts worth. Your team is covered no matter the sport. The Peacock and Williamson NFL show, myself and former NFL scout Matt Williamson breaking down the entire league daily, and the new Locked On NFL, and so much more. Croc and I back tomorrow. We're already back for a crossover Thursday. We're looking on to week 2. We got the Minnesota Vikings coming up, and Luke Braun, the host of Locked On Vikings, will join us. Talk to you then right here, Locked On 49ers.
See you.